Growing up, I knew a lot of people that wanted to make their own anime or manga series. They'd always boast about how good it'll end up being, and then proceed to describe the most contrived storyline imaginable and show you their deviant art tier character designs. Lots of people have done this, including me too, more times than I'm willing to admit actually. But that's exactly why I find Rooster Teeth's Rwby so fascinating, as Monteum has managed to take one of these stories and actually make it. Rwby actually starts with a set of trailers. Each of the 4 trailers tells a self-contained story that introduces one of the 4 main characters. The Rwby trailer is very good. It does a great job of building intrigue, and the lack of dialogue is striking. It only does what it needs to do and nothing else. It shows Rwby fighting a group of Grimm with her scythe, and we'll need to watch the actual show to learn more. The Weiss trailer takes us a step further by using the same concept of showing the character fighting an opponent with no context, but it packs in more detail and subtle development. Of course, Weiss singing about how lonely she is isn't exactly subtle, but then building upon this by having her fight a single opponent rather than a group of many, as well as her opponent being a personality-less set of armor, is quite clever, not to mention that it's this emptiness that ends up giving her a scar. Unfortunately, it's at this point where Rwby already takes a drop in quality. I've already mentioned how effective the lack of dialogue was, but for some reason Rooster Teeth decided that these last 2 trailers needed to have the characters speak.
Looks like we're gonna be doing this the hard way.
Which is weird because this trailer would have been much better without it. The speaking really isn't necessary and none of the characters actually say anything too important. They try to use the speech to show that Blake and Adam are working as a team and have known each other for a long time, but surely them not needing to talk during a fight would have been a better way of showing their relationship. Another thing that kind of bothers me is Adam. Why does Adam get so much focus? Why is he even in this trailer? The previous trailers were stripped down to just the main character and their opponent, but for some reason they decided to also focus on a character that doesn't even come back until much later on. Keeping Adam a mystery would have strengthened Blake's story by a lot. Otherwise this trailer is still pretty good, but it's far less tight than the previous 2 and really lacks that same punch. Yang's trailer is by far the worst. Each trailer starts off with a quote and her quote is the best one, but other than that this trailer is still a step down. For the most part it just takes my negative of the Blake trailer and just doubles down on them. There are so many more characters this time and a lot of them get speaking roles. The setup isn't even that good this time. Yang is looking for a mother who has been missing for the last few years, so she goes to a nightclub to get information, but it turns out that no one has the answer she wants, so she just starts fighting them. Once again, the Yang finding her mother thing isn't mentioned until quite a bit later on, and forcing Rwby into this trailer for no real reason really bothered me. The reason I went into such detail with the trailers is because they in turn show whether the series itself succeeds and fails. A lot of the dialogue stuff ends up being badly written and they end up overcomplicating things by shoving in too many characters. The focus should just be on these 4 main characters themselves, as well as the cool fights, music and visual metaphors. Let's talk about the first 3 volumes a bit while I try to back up my points a little.
Legends. Stories scattered through time.
The first episode starts with an exposition dump, which nicely brings me to my next point. This show does not know how to execute exposition for the life of it sometimes. There are several episodes, even in the newest volume, where characters just dump a bunch of world building or backstory to another character. This wouldn't be as bad if Rwby didn't also have a mini-series called World of Remnant which exists solely to deliver more exposition. I genuinely don't know if Rooster Teeth got lazy or if this is really the best they could do because World of Remnant is almost offensively bad. Imagine if you were watching your favourite show and it made you stop to watch a mini-series that's nothing but dull exposition. But the truly bad part is that when the writers have something to work with, they can actually be quite subtle and creative with their exposition and development. For example, Ozpin enrolling Rwby into the school in the first episode was a good way of introducing those 2 characters. Sure, a couple of lines are forced, but we're actually shown a lot about Rwby by having her stop a robbery and nerd out at the thought of becoming a huntress. The chemistry between her and Ozpin is pretty entertaining too, and Glinda's different reactions to Rwby tell us a lot about Ozpin in turn. Another example of good exposition is in Volume 2 where the characters are playing a card game that's actually about the world this show is set in.
And since Atlas is part of Mantle, my repair time only lasts 1 turn.
It tells us quite a bit about Remnant in a short and creative way, as well as showing us a lot about the characters too. The scene also offers some fun interactions between the characters and is far better than the World of Remnant equivalent. Even the music manages to give out some good character development. One of the things that almost everyone seems to agree with when discussing Rwby is that the music is really good. I won't mention the quality of the actual music itself other than that I really like it, but the lyrics to said music ends up adding a lot of character background and development in a way that doesn't hit you too hard over the head with it. It's obvious enough that everyone will get what the lyrics are supposed to mean, but not so obvious that it's condescending. I mentioned that a couple of lines in the first episode felt forced, and yeah, they do.
For a dusty old crow.
That's my uncle.
You see, Rooster Teeth are a company that make online content, so they're really aware of memes, references, and the likes. This means that Rwby is absolutely full of them, and it gets extremely distracting at times, and if anything, it only gets worse as time passes. During the beginning few episodes, Yang mentions a few times that she wants Rwby to learn to get better at socializing and wants her to end up on a different team.
Maybe you should try being on someone else's team.
They do not end up in a different team. In fact, whilst the team forming process is shown as somewhat randomized, Rwby still ends up in a team made exclusively of characters she knew beforehand. And this point is also indicative of future problems throughout all of Rwby. There are lots of conveniences and lost opportunity like this. Surely it would have been more interesting to not show Rwby meeting Blake and Weiss until when the team actually forms. It would have emphasized Yang's point of wanting Rwby to get better at socializing when she meets Weiss in the forest for the first time and tries to make a good first impression. Rwby is not a very tightly written show at all, but small tweaks like this would have been an easy way of fixing it. Whilst I like the character designs and overall style of the series, the animation is only fine. I usually dislike CGI a lot, but it serves its purpose despite having a fraction of the budget and staff of worse looking CGI shows like Berserk 2016. The animation is at its best during the fight scenes in Volume 1 and 2. From Volume 3 onwards, the fight choreography seems to take a hit in quality due to the passing of series creator Monty Yoon. He always liked the idea of every movement counting, and he even got the idea for Rwby's sniper scythe when he thought using gun recoil was a cool way of swinging the scythe. Suffice to say, Volume 3 onwards completely abandons this concept and the action suffers because of it. They feel so much more floaty and messy. Not awful, but definitely worse. Whilst Volume 1 was mainly focused on introducing the main team, Volume 2 doubles down on the previous negatives by introducing a lot of characters that add almost nothing to the overall plot and don't get any good development. We don't get much actual plot in Volume 2 and instead it's mainly just foreshadowing for Volume 3. Volume 3 is a tournament. As a fan of card game anime, I've seen lots of tournament arcs and this one is pretty mediocre for the beginning few fights. However, Volume 3 really kicks in around about the halfway mark and I won't lie, these last episodes are very good. They still suffer from a lot of problems, but it's here that Rwby finally shows its true colours. It finally starts to flesh out its central theme of real life not always having a happy ending and Rwby wanting to be a hero. I really don't want to say too much more in this video because I don't want to worry about spoiling anything interesting. But the point of this video is to show that I really do like Rwby, but I also kinda dislike it too. I feel like it has a lot of missed opportunities and ways to improve here and there, but it also has a lot of things it executes so well that I can't help but get frustrated even more by the flaws. I seriously do really enjoy Rwby, but it's for this reason that my opinion seems to continuously waver. And that's my love-hate relationship with Rwby.